as the church, have not done the best job with picking people back up when they have failed.
No, we're good at letting them down and telling them to find another church.
Yes, we say we're the hospital. We've said, we're the place that's going to be safe and the place of refuge and the lighthouse and all of those things. But when it gets down to people failing, we aren't the best at picking them back up. And we're very quick to assume and to criticize their process, even though we're not in it and we have no idea what's behind the curtain.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome.
What's up, collective people?
Yeah, what's up, collective people? Welcome to the Collective Church Podcast. This is our second episode, which was inspired by another episode. So Ashley thought it was 3.
It's our third time filming.
It's our third time filming, but this is our second podcast. Our goal is to be consistent in something. No, in this.
Yes. So here we are.
Hey, thank you so much for all the support and love from our first podcast.
We're so grateful.
Yeah, and do us a favor. If you're not already, please like, subscribe our channel, our podcast, and share. If it helped you out or if you got a kick out of it, man, share it with someone. That'd be super awesome.
It doesn't hurt to encourage other people. Share it.
It does. Ashley, you look very nice today.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. See how I encouraged you?
Yes.
Okay, what's mine?
What?
Are you going to encourage me now? I'm waiting.
Your fit is fire today.
Wow, thank you, honey. Oh my gosh, this is going so good. But this is not a podcast on encouragement.
It's not.
It's absolutely.
But we hope that it will encourage you.
We hope that our mistakes will encourage you out there.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. And so I don't even remember what our first podcast was about.
How not to quit.
That's right. It was how not. How many times did you watch it?
A few.
Why?
I listened to it the first time without the video, just the audio. And then I watched it a couple of times. Why? Because I think it's important for us to go back and listen to what we're saying and just checking that it's sound.
Fact checking,
yeah. That it's sound and that what we're putting out there is inspired by the Holy Spirit at the end of the day.
Yeah, I probably watched it like 5 times. Just for the same reason.
I'm sure you did.
And then I was like critiquing.
Yes.
And like judging slightly.
I think that's good. Well, we don't need to judge.
I know.
But I think that critiquing ourselves and watching things back is great. I wish we would have done it more in our earlier years of podcasting.
Don't you wish you could just rewind some moments in your life and replay them again? That'd be phenomenal.
I was having a conversation with someone about this a while back about how we've mentioned this before. The Collective podcast is not our first podcast.
It's not our first podcast.
The Collective itself the name was inspired by a podcast we had some years ago called The AB Collective.
The AB Collective.
While it was so much fun, and I think we definitely had some amazing conversations in it, I can definitely listen back to some episodes now and watch some episodes, and I can still kind of see like parts where I needed to heal.
Yeah.
And I would say things very differently at this stage of my life if I talked about the same topics, if that makes sense.
Agreed. 100.
So
it's like starting a podcast in your early 30s and thinking you have everything to say, and then life smacking you in the gut, in the face, in the back, in the kneecap, or the arthritis. I don't know.
Which is kind of what the 30s are about.
And then I hit 40 and I'm like, oh, maybe I should have waited 10 years before I did a podcast.
Totally. Like I thought I knew.
Yeah, I thought I knew.
Or the things that we thought were hard.
One thing I know now is that I don't know anymore.
Yes.
And that's okay.
And that's liberating.
That's super liberating. So obviously I was thinking about this podcast this morning and I'm like, man, how did we start it? How much do we talk about our pets? Like how much do we talk about things that really don't matter? And then I was like, okay, I got it. I think I got it. And I was thinking about a question that I wanted to ask you, which I don't ever think that in the 15 years we've been married, I don't think I've ever asked you this question.
Wow.
Yeah. Will you marry me? No, I'm just kidding. It was this question. What?
I'm terrified.
In your childhood or in BA before Alberto.
Okay.
Did you fail at something?
Oh.
And that you just never recovered from? Like you never did it again. Well, I mean, you could therapy. I mean, I hope with all the therapy that we've invested in.
Okay, I've healed from it, but I never did it again.
Something to that extent.
I don't know.
We only have 25 minutes.
Generalize because we don't have time for me to sit there and think
something you failed at. What is one thing you look back and I'm like, man, I totally failed in that. I took the L. I stepped out, I tried it, and man, that just did not work.
Probably any form of sports, aside from figure skating.
I don't think I've ever seen you play any form of sports at all.
No. I'd love to coach kids, but not from a place of experiencing the actual sport, more from a leadership place. Sports were hard for me. It just wasn't my thing. I was always more of a creative and like a movement person in a different way. So I wanted to be that kid for sure.
Absolutely. Who doesn't want to be Michael Jordan?
I wanted to be that kid. Like my best friend growing up, she played basketball, she played softball, like she could do the thing, you know.
Shout out to that friend.
Yeah, but that was not me.
Yeah.
And I was definitely more the artistic one, the dance and those type of what are considered, I guess, now sports. They weren't back then, though. Cheer was not a sport back then, the way that it is now. It also didn't look the way that it does now. But all of that to say, sports was definitely a big fail for me. And I never wanted to try anything remotely close to it again.
Wow, and that's crazy because our son is like all sports all day long.
I've had to learn about all of the sports very quickly, having a son that lives and breathes for sports.
So would you ever play golf?
I don't know. I just don't know.
What if I take you shopping before we go?
It's not about that. It's about like, oddly enough, I'm competitive.
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100.
And so I think that that's what holds me back in a way.
Yeah.
For some people, I think it propels them.
Yeah.
For me, the competitiveness in me keeps me from wanting to play sports because I feel like if I'm going to fail, then I don't want to do it, which is like me giving away what we're about to talk about.
Oh my gosh, what are we talking about? We're talking about crochet. No, I'm just kidding.
Talking about sports.
Yeah, I think I failed at so many things. I think one thing that I definitely took the L in was college, not Bible college, but fashion school. I wanted to go into the fashion industry. I went to school in New York. I went to school in LA. Was interning with an incredible company.
Yeah.
And I just ended up like imploding, failing every class. It was like one of those things I looked back on and I was like, man, you really took the L in that in a sense. And I didn't really think I thought about it then as much as I've thought about it now. But I don't know if I've ever recovered. So I have therapy June 10th and I'm excited for my appointment.
You have recovered.
I still have recovered, but I think that's one of the topics that's a topic that we wanted to talk about was failure, right? What do we do when we encounter failure? I was reading this quote and I just thought it was interesting. It was Michael Jordan, my all-time favorite basketball player.
Yeah.
He said, I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. Like from the great theologian Michael Jordan saying that the reason I was able to succeed in life, I mean, he failed from a young age before his college days. He just always continued to pick up and move forward. But he was like, because I failed, I was able to succeed. I don't necessarily know if we really talk about failure within the Christian context or within the faith community in a sense, and what to do with failure, because I think we're so afraid of failure.
Well, I think it comes with a lot of shame.
Oh, absolutely.
It comes with a lot of shame. And I mean, I've had to work through that personally. I've had to work through my own fear of failure and the shame that either I've attached to it myself or something in my life informed that it was shameful to fail. But the fear of failure within the church or within the Christian community, I think, is so prevalent because we are ashamed to fail because we're supposed to be able to do all things through Christ and who strengthens us. But we take that scripture out of context because it's actually, there's boundaries within the things. It's what he's called you to do. He's going to give you the strength to do, not everything that falls into your lap.
Well, I just look at the successes in our life, and I think every success was birthed out of a great failure.
Yes.
And then which we were willing to take the L, learn from it, and move forward, whether it was in our marriage. I would say right now we're probably the healthiest we've ever been in our marriage, and we've been like that for the past 10 minutes or years. But it definitely took an L. I would say our parenting style has shifted. We don't have all the answers, but we've failed in parenting moments.
Yes.
And then in ministry, like, you know, we have a great church, but that came with a lot of failures.
Yes.
And here's the hard part. When you have any form of influence, or even if you're just on social media, everybody is watching every aspect of your journey, including the failures.
Yeah, when you live publicly. You succeed in front of everyone, but you also fail in front of everybody. And you have to be able to stay confident through the failure. It's easy to stay confident through the success and through the winning moments and the highlights, but it's a whole other thing to stand firm and to stay confident with humility, of course, when you failed in front of everyone that's watching you.
Right. No, I agree. And if we were to give some more practical type of application in our lives, I would say that one of our failures within our journey, ministry, pastoring.
I'm interested to what you think it is.
I think it was our first church plant.
100%.
I mean,
that's what I would say.
28 years old, and we're planning a church in LA, in Hollywood, where we're from. One of the hardest things we ever did. I think at 28 years old, I was like, we are so ready. We're going to crush it.
Yeah.
We're going to kill it. Been in ministry for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
We're ready to go. And I know our church had success. Like, there was growth. God brought people. People got saved.
Yeah, there was fruit for sure.
But I feel like that was such a hard season, and coming out of that and then having to sort of come to terms and to grips with the reality of, I really think that we failed.
Yeah. It was a huge part of why I didn't want to plant again, ever in my life. A huge part of why I was so hesitant towards planting, the idea of planting the collective, was because our experience and our season in planting in LA was informing that. And I just knew, one, what it was going to require, and two, I knew that for me personally, I felt like we had failed at doing that, at planting a church and allowing it to, or it remaining, I guess, sustainable. And so that was a big part that I had to heal from, and my perspective had to be shifted. I remember sitting in therapy and our therapist saying to me, so what is failure to you? We were talking about this very thing, this very situation. And he looked at me and said, what is failure to you? And I said, well, I feel like it not working out the way that it was, that I thought it should work out, I should say. The way that I pictured it to work out was failure. And he looked at me and he was like, actually, quitting was failing.
Oof, that's why we pay the man so much.
Well, all right. You know, what do you do from that? Like, I just felt like a deer in headlights. Like, oh my gosh, I feel confronted by the Lord.
No, I absolutely wanted quitting. The hard part is I call it the walk of shame, because then everybody you know and everybody that's been watching you every time, it's like, what are they thinking? When you come around, you know that people are thinking those things and having those conversations about you, but not with you. Yeah. And then I feel like that was one of the hardest parts of failure, and not even wanting to step back within the context of ministry or pastoring, because didn't want to fail again. I think that's one of our biggest fears in planting, was that we would fail.
Yes.
But I think that one of the huge reasons that we're succeeding now is because we didn't quit, that we were introspective, that we reflected, and then we took time to grow.
You know, I think had we not had that experience, we would not lead the way that we do today.
Oh, absolutely.
We would not value what we are doing the way that we do today. We would not even see people or have a heart to shepherd and pastor people at the capacity that I think we do, had we not had that experience in that season where we felt like we had failed doing it the first time. And I just think we have a lot to look back to in hindsight that is now helping us lead in a way that's healthy, and that, ultimately God is growing it. There's not anything special that we're doing, but I just think that it did change everything for us looking back now that we are on the other side of it. You know, when you're in it, it's just terrible. I don't think when you're in it, it's just a whole whirlwind of emotions, and seems like lots of tears,
chaos, because it wasn't like, an instantaneous failure. I think just us looking back, we're like, I don't think we did our best. And so the question is, well, why did you feel that you failed? In looking back, I don't think that I had the infrastructure to be able to sustain the weight of the ministry that we were trying to build.
Yes.
Meaning that I don't think I had the character. I don't think I had the fullness in maturity. I don't think I had the fullness of wisdom. And I don't think I had the fullness of experience. So we're trying to fly this plane 30,000 feet in the air. And I think there's mechanics and there's systems and there's structure. And there are all these things that can produce results, but can they produce fruit?
Wow.
And I feel like I didn't have that looking back. And I thought I did. I thought we did.
Yeah.
I thought we were ready to carpe diem, just seize the day, just ready to set sail. And it was going to be this incredible thing. And in hindsight, I think those were some of the elements that were missing. And one of the things I was thinking about, all right, because I'm always like, okay, God, connect this to speak to me through the word.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the prodigal son. Now, oftentimes when you hear the story of the prodigal son, you're thinking of the context, someone that grew up in the house of the Lord, they knew the Lord, they fell away from the Lord, and they come back. Totally accurate. But when I look at that, and this is not out of context, when I look at that, I see a young man who wants what's his, what's the promise, but he wants the right thing in the wrong time.
Wow.
But he begs his father enough to the extent, or he's very firm with his father. So his father's like, well, I'm a father. I give good gifts. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and give you your inheritance. He goes out and he squanders the inheritance. Why? Because he didn't have the maturity or the character to sustain the weight of the glory, to sustain the weight of the blessing. And it crushed him. Yikes. And he found himself in the pig's pen, right? Thank God that we weren't in any physical pig's pen. I mean, there's a few times, oink, it felt like that, but nonetheless, I'm going to digress. I did oink. I'm sorry, oink. And I feel like that was, here's the thing, he could have stayed in the pig pen, but he humbled himself and he came back. And I think he came back with the right spirit, with the right heart. And here's the truth. If he would have stayed in his father's house for a longer period of time, he would have learned from his father. He would have learned from gleaned from his wisdom. He would have learned how to able to manage the animals, manage the money, et cetera, et cetera. And here's the reality. The inheritance would have grew over the course of time. It's called inflation. So he settled for what was good instead of waiting for what was best. Yeah. And so when I look at that story, I'm like, man, that was us. That was me. I think ministry through social media, through different avenues was portrayed. Go big, go home, get it now, be successful.
In that time, for sure.
In that time, it was like that was when the celebrity thing was taking off. Mega churches were like,
this was 10, 12 years ago now.
Yeah.
And so when we set out to plant, it was 2013. And so it's been about 10 years and it was a different time. Church planting was like the thing. It was hip. It was cool.
It was cool.
It was what everybody was doing that didn't want to submit to their lead pastor. And so they thought they would say I'm called to plant, but not everybody's called to plant. That's a whole other episode. But
episode 112.
We're not going to go in that direction. But my point is, it was attractive to plant at that time.
Let me tell you, the end result was attractive. They didn't tell you about the process.
They didn't tell you about the grind.
They didn't tell you about the grind.
And we were planting in one of the biggest metropolitan cities in the country.
Hollywood.
One of the most expensive cities to live, to do anything. And we had a young family, very young family. We had 2 kids when we set out to plant that were 4 and a few months old.
Well, we said if the church isn't going to grow, we're going to grow. Amen.
Yeah, right.
Oh.
And so, it was just a lot happening. And we definitely were not prepared. We were not prepared. We were not there yet. We still had a lot that we had to work on within ourselves, and realize that as attractive and as cool, and you could have all the bells and whistles and all of those things, but it really didn't matter.
No, it didn't matter. And one of the things that I'm seeing, especially amongst like the younger generation, which I absolutely love. As a matter of fact, they're the ones that are filming and editing and taking photos behind the scenes.
Listen, that's who I ask
in all
most
of
questions these days.
But I'm talking about the young people that are not in this room.
Yeah.
No, I realize that we want success to be expedited. We want this expedient process, and we don't factor in that there is going to be failure after failure after failure, that if you're faithful and you don't quit and if you bounce back will lead to success. So usually people never reach the epitome or the magnitude of success because they're not willing to deal with the magnitude of failures that come with it.
Yes.
I know we talked about the last podcast. I think the reason that we've been successful in marriage, ministry, family, whatever, has been because we never quit, right? And we use those failures to fuel us and propel us. It didn't mean that it didn't hurt. It didn't mean that we didn't have setbacks.
Yeah.
It didn't mean that we didn't have to process things like depression and anxiety and hardship. But it just meant, hey, we're not going to stay there because that's not a destination. Mm-hmm. It's a drive-through on our way to our destination.
I think what has set us up in the church to fear failure so much, even though we're not given a spirit of fear, but of power and love and a sound mind.
You better preach.
Think that what has set us up for failure in that is that we have applied worldly metrics to
you better say
a
that.
kingdom math problem,
Yeah, like kingdom principles.
A kingdom principle. And success in the world is, we cannot measure success in the church and in ministry, whatever that looks like, whatever that means to everybody. I think success is going to look different to everyone because it's dependent on what your goals are, right?
Yeah.
And achieving those goals and achieving the dreams that God has placed in your heart and the vision and all of that. But we've applied worldly metrics. While some things, systems, structure, I think that that's great. I think that I can speak to, you've always been that guy. Like when we were in LA, we have this joke in our home, and the people that have been in ministry with us for years at different capacities know this, but the minute like the giant sticky Post-it comes out and it gets put on the wall in our home, we know like, oh, we're about to get some sort of framework, right? And it's a thing. Like we keep them in our home, and we know like if he has an idea,
your next
or we're
birthday
having
card is going to be a big old Post-it
some
note.
sort of meeting. Gosh, I've posted this before. I ask you one question, I get an entire framework for something when I'm like, I just wanted the answer to this question.
I'm just saying.
And so, but it's helpful. And so much of my personal leadership has been informed by that. All that to say, systems, structure, I think that that's always been in you, and it's a gift that God has given you. But that isn't the only thing. What we've learned and kind of what we were discussing, that is not the only metric that determines if what we're building when we're building his church is going to be successful. That works together with ultimately the will of God, his timing, and our character being in a place where we can sustain it, right? And humility is key. So I think what we learned from our failures a lot in a lot of situations was us humbling ourselves, acknowledging that it didn't work, acknowledging that we weren't ready, looking back and being able to publicly admit, like we are, you know what? That was not my best. You know what? I got ahead of the Lord. You know what? I would do that way different now.
Put the cart before the horse.
Put the cart before the horse.
Yeah, that's how you say it.
I'm sure there's a million sayings.
Yeah. My dad has a ton of Spanish
Oh
ones.
my gosh. Yes. That's all I've asked him to leave me behind when he leaves this earth is a book of sayings. But all that to say, I think that is a huge part of what's kind of set us up to fail in a sense is we've tried applying these worldly metrics to kingdom success, and it's never going to be the same because success in the eyes of God is well and done, my good and faithful servant, not well done, my good, hardworking, systematic servant. He says, my good and faithful. And so faithfulness is the foundation. Faithfulness is the key to being able to, when we do fail, continuing to move forward towards the prize, towards the goal, which is heaven, towards what God has called us to do, and not throwing in the towel. And I think we equate faithfulness with success, and so the minute we fail, we become unfaithful because we think that he has betrayed us, or we think that he has forgotten or has turned his back on us.
Dealing with disappointment,
and then we're dealing with like
frustration.
We just tangle ourselves into this crazy web that we need the Lord to get out of. But I think that a lot of why we're so afraid of failure in the church and haven't kind of normalized, like, no, it's part of the journey. It's part of our discipleship process with the Lord. Even
I agree. I think culturally we've created this idea, though. I think it's all of our faults. I think it's through social media. I think it's through advertisement. I think it's through even the things that we celebrate at church. Success is this is this shiny, polished, incredible thing, this shiny, polished marriage, the shiny, polished children, all this other stuff. But I think you said it, or you said earlier, success in the eyes of God, or success in the eyes of the kingdom, is not quitting. Is not quitting. And I know that character is developed and maturity is developed through failure. It's like, what? Consider pure joy, my brothers, when you face trials of many kind, because the testing of your faith will develop perseverance, and perseverance must finish its work so that you may be mature and complete. We stop persevering. I think when you stop persevering in your marriage, stop persevering in your finances, you stop persevering in your business, you stop persevering in your relationship with Jesus and your walk with God. That's the minute that you're truly failing, and not in that good way. You're just, does that make sense?
You're giving up.
You're giving up.
You're giving up. And failure, the moments of failure really are the training ground.
Absolutely. Well, so this would be my question. This is something I was thinking, okay, because we've been talking about failure for like 15 minutes. How do you come back from failure? How do you bounce back? How do you get back up, dust yourself off, and try again?
Oh, okay.
At first you don't succeed.
We're having an Aaliyah moment.
Dust yourself off and try. Can I be on the worship team?
You know, I don't think so.
I think that one of the things is to acknowledge, okay, I took the L in this. It's time to get up. But I think we're always so focused on, what does God want to do through me? Yeah, God wants to do this through me. He wants to build this through me. He wants to do this through me. No, that's totally accurate, 100% accurate. But I think that God is more concerned in doing something in you first than doing something through you. We're destination people, but we don't realize God's a process journey person. Or God, I mean, you know, he's all about the process. And so I think it's important to say, God, I see what happened. What in me are you wanting to do or trying to do that I have not seen? I think that's the most humbling posture that we can start with as it pertains to failure.
Yeah.
Because you can be quick to blame the system,
Yep.
quick to blame the people, quick to blame everything else, instead of saying, okay, what in me, God, are you trying to do?
Yeah.
I think that's the first thing.
Assigning blame is a form of pride.
Yeah, that's what God's trying to do in you.
Yeah, and you know who else assigns blame? The enemy.
Oof.
He loves to assign blame, and I think when we assign blame, we lack taking responsibility for our shortcomings, for the areas of our character that need work, that still need some development. We will be in process and in development for the rest of our lives until he calls us home. So we will never get to a place where we are fully developed. We will be developed to the point that he wants us to be developed if we allow it. And the Bible is pretty clear about this whole like heart posture of him opposing the proud and giving grace to the humble. And I think you can overcome failure because he will give you the grace to overcome if you humble yourself before him and say, I didn't do this well. Maybe I didn't steward this the way that you wanted me to, or whatever it may be. You know, I'm sorry for getting ahead of you. I'm sorry, Lord, for putting the cart before the horse. I'm sorry for stepping out of your will even.
Yeah, so it's a moment of repentance.
It's a moment of repentance. And a lot of times when we fail, the mistake I think that we make and doesn't allow us to overcome it fully is that we step into a place of pride.
Yeah.
Where we don't want to admit where we contributed, where we don't want to own our end of it. And we understand there are moments of injustice. There are moments where it's not fair and situations are out of our hands and out of our control.
Yeah.
But I think that there is something to be said even in those moments to be able to look back and say, where can I take ownership? Where did I maybe take a misstep? So that we can overcome the failure and move forward and heal from the failure and move forward.
Well, and I think you need to get people in your corner that are going to speak the truth in your life.
Yes.
Because it's very easy in a moment of failure to surround yourself with people that are going to inflate your ego and tell you what you want to hear.
Yep.
But I think it's important to check your attitude and to check your emotions, because I've realized that the heart is wicked and deceitful above all things. Who can trust it? And I realize that many Christians or young believers today are fueled by emotions. We make decisions based on emotion and not truth. We're led too much by our heart and not by the word, too much by our heart and not by the scriptures. And so I think it's a good place to evaluate our emotions, evaluate our attitude, and determine where we need adjustment, because we've seen a lot of people who have failed and have not got back up and moved forward because I think they allowed their emotions to get the best of them. So I think it's keeping those emotions at bay and checking them.
Guarding our hearts.
It's guarding our hearts. And I think lastly, it's about, I think one of the hardest parts is that people are afraid to try again because they're too concerned with what the onlookers are going to say or what they're going to think?
I was just thinking that. I was thinking
I'm
about...
concerned about what you were thinking about me
No,
right now.
I was thinking about how also as the church, all of us, as the church, have not done the best job with picking people back up when they have failed.
No, we're good at letting them down or telling them to find another church.
Yes, we say we're the hospital. We've said, we're the place that's going to be safe and the place of refuge and the lighthouse and all of those things. But when it gets down to people failing, we aren't the best at picking them back up. And we're very quick to assume and to criticize their process, even though we're not in it and we have no idea what's behind the curtain.
Well, when we say that people are like the church is a hospital, a lot of churches will say, yes. I'm like, yeah, but you're labor and delivery. You love the birthing part, but you don't love the sustaining part.
Wow.
Now that
you got 24 hours.
Yeah, this believer is. And so I think it's just that. I think it's acknowledging it, asking God, what are you trying to do in me so that you can do something profound through me? Where's my attitude and my emotions been in all of it? And I'm not going to be concerned with what people are going to say because it's my journey and my process. At the end of the day, I'm held accountable for my talents. Nobody else is. Yeah. And so I would just encourage you, if you've hit a point of failure, like in your marriage, in your business, in whatever it is, like roll through that process and get back up and move forward. Because at the end of the day, we have more people that are willing to push beyond their fears and insecurities to step into everything that God has for them. Yeah. Well, this has been a great talk.
It's great.
I don't feel like it was a fail of a conversation. I felt like it was good.
This was great.
Hey, thanks for talking to me.
Thanks for talking to me and hanging out with me today.
Absolutely. This is like the only time we've got.
You guys.
We have 4 children and summer is approaching.
It is the end of the school year.
I thought we were in therapy. Anyways, hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. Hey, do us a favor once again. Please like, subscribe, share this podcast if it's blessed you or helped you in any way. Hey, and we look forward to connecting with you on our next episode. So God bless.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We love you.